This is 4.3 right triangle trig, day 2. 4.3 section in your book on right triangles and how they relate with the trig functions. I'd like to remind you about two things. We talked about this on the first day of class. What does show your work mean? You know, it's a lot more than just proving that you did the problem. It's also helping you justify your answer. So this slide talks about some of the things that you can do to justify your answer. Draw diagrams, show all equations and calculations you used. If you use known properties, special right triangles indicate that. Circling an answer. I think some of you are under the mistaken impression that just writing an answer is sufficient because you, quote, did the arithmetic or whatever in your head. We're going to be practicing all year showing and what that means to justify an answer. Many of you might arrive at an answer in a different method, and so that all needs to be documented. Now, I'm not saying just write over and over things that are unnecessary, but there are certain things that are necessary and expected in an answer, and so that's what I'm talking about here. Okay, the first thing we want to do is we want to find the other 5 trig functions of the angle. And what you're seeing down here is right here is what we're actually going to do. We're actually going to find the other 5 trig functions of the angle. And in order to do that, we're going to follow these other methods up here, sketching, finding a third side, and doing. So we're going to work this example, and we'll do another one on the next screen. So the first thing we want to do then is sketch a right triangle corresponding to the trig function. So I'm going to sketch a right triangle, and I'm going to make this x just because it's convenient. And I know that the cosine of that angle is 3 over 7. Well, we know from our ratios that it is adjacent over hypotenuse. So we've sketched a right triangle and we've used the ratio to number the sides in the correct ratio, and now we need to find this third side. And I'm going to call the third side y since we've already called something else x. And most of you know we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem to do this, so we have y squared is equal to 7 squared plus 3 squared. 49 plus 9 is 58. So we know that y then will be the square root of 58. And I could throw that in my calculator, but I'm going to go for the exact answer because I'm now going to use that side to write the other 5 trig functions of the angle. And because I want to keep my pattern going, I'm going to start off with sine, cosine, tangent, cosecant, secant, and cotangent. Just write it in the order. And I've already been given one of the answers, and that's the cosine. So I'm going to go ahead and write it in. That cosine is going in. And then I can find secant quite easily because it's a reciprocal function. I'm just going to write that over. Sine x, of course, is going to be opposite over, so the square root of 58 over 7. And then we remember that tangent is sine over cosine, so that will be the square root of 58 over 3. Now, to do cosecant and cotangent, we take the reciprocal, so 7 over the square root of 58. And that's probably sufficient for what we need to do, but you could always rationalize it if need be. Okay? And once you see that, once you get used to rationalizing, it doesn't take that much. And then this is 3 over the square root of 58, which is the same thing as the 3 square root of 58 over 58. Right? And that's how that goes. So we have step 1, step 2, and step 3 to solve the problem. And all of this would be justifying my answer. Okay, here's another example. We're going to start with cotangent theta equals 5. And so once again, we're going to sketch a right triangle. This time my angle is theta. Cotangent is a reciprocal function, so this is really 5 over 1, right? So it's a reciprocal function to tangent, which is opposite over adjacent. So this is going to be adjacent over opposite. And then the second step is to find the third side. Well, I can simplify this. I don't have to work it out every single time. Isn't the third side going to be the square root of 25 plus 1 squared, right? So 26. Okay. So this is just 5 squared plus 1 squared, the square root of, so I'm good. All right, and then find the other 5 sides. So this is pretty easy. Sine, once you get the method down, it's not a big deal. Now you can also see that if you get the third side incorrect, or you get the ratio incorrect, or you put it on here, like say for instance I put a 5 instead of the 1 or whatever, then all of these are going to be wrong. So that's why we show our work, because I can go back then and look at it and determine whether you understood the method of what you were doing and you just made an arithmetic mistake, or if you really just don't have a clue on how to do it. Because on a test, this is all you're going to get. Not going to tell you how to do these other sides. So, okay, so they gave me cotangent. Cotangent is 5. So that would mean that tangent is going to be 1/5. All right, looking at my looking at my triangle, sine is going to be 1 over the square root of 26. So before I rationalize it, I'm going to write in the cosecant. Cosine is going to be 5 over the square root of 26. Right? And then you can rationalize this or not. It really doesn't matter to me. When we get to calculus, we don't rationalize anything. And I'm having a hard time, it's too small. All right? The next type of problem that we're going to look at is one where we're given some information and we're using what we know about the trig identities, like the reciprocal functions and SOHCAHTOA, to find the indicated trig functions. Okay, so we're given that the sine of 30 is 1/2 from the unit circle. That's not a big surprise. That's the sine of pi over 6. The tangent of pi over 6 is square root of 3 over 3. And so what we're talking about then is a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Right? And so the sine is 1/2. And so it's in this ratio, is it not? So cosecant, if you think about cosecant, cosecant is the reciprocal, right, of sine. So cosecant of theta is 1 over sine theta. So that's going to be 2. The cotangent of 60, let's think about what the cotangent of 60 would look like. The tangent of 60 would be opposite over adjacent, so the cotangent of theta would be adjacent over opposite. So because it's the reciprocal, that's the identity. So when I look here at 60 degrees, the angle adjacent is 1, and so this is 1 over the square root of 3, which rationalized is the same thing. Ho ho. So that means, and we've talked about this before, the cotangent of 60 is equal to the tangent of 30. Right? Because they are two acute angles in the same triangle. All right, the cosine of 30, if you look at that, is going to be square root of 3 over 2. And we can get that either from from the triangle that I've written up here to help me, or I could get it from the unit circle, or from my memory. I might actually know that. And then the cotangent of 30 is going to be a reciprocal, right? Because the cotangent of theta is 1 over tangent theta. And so I have 1 over, so that's going to be 3 over the square root of 3, which rationalized is 3 square root of 3 over 3, which is just the square root of 3. So what we're doing is we're getting more and more tools and properties that we can use to form new relationships with the trig functions based on what we know about them. Okay, so just a reminder on your notes. You need to copy down, of course, what's on the screen. You need to work the examples. If there is something that you don't understand, there needs to be a question mark by it, and we need to go over that in class. Because when you get to class, you need to be ready to complete the homework. Okay, we're going to have some board work that I want you to work on, but all of that needs to be in there. So while you're watching these videos and you're working through some of the examples, don't forget that much of this is in your book. So if you can't watch a video for some reason, it doesn't work, or you don't have access to it, get your book out, look at the section. It's section 4.3. Read through that information so that you are prepared for class. All right? We'll see you all in class.